What's up, everybody? Welcome in to another edition of the Hoops Betting Hour. I am your host, the big man on campus. We are here live on a Tuesday, June 15th, breaking it all down. Man, time flies. It's amazing how fast time flies anymore. I feel like it was just, May 1st, and we were back in March. Now we're already into June. Before we know it, it'll be July, then in August, and then football will be back. So we got a lot to talk about. We had 2 games last night. We have 1 game tonight. And these games continue to get more and more interesting. We obviously have an interesting kind of situation tonight between the Bucks and the Nets. Also, towards the end, we'll go through a couple other things. Let's bring in our guest today. It's Martin Weiss. Martin, how you doing? Good to see you. Tuesday. How are you?
Doing well. I'm doing better than Joel Embiid last night. I know that. Lord have mercy.
We'll get into that in just a second. We'll also get into the very solid victory I had with Utah under the total. That game got close, but it stayed under. We'll get to that in a second. As always, we are here every day breaking down the NBA playoffs. We're here all the way through the end of the finals. So make sure if you enjoy what you're seeing, you hit the like button, you hit the subscribe button, tell people that you think might enjoy it. And if you're watching on the replay, thanks for checking us out as well. All right, let's get into what we saw last night in the association. As you alluded to, Joel Embiid and the Sixers go down to the Atlanta Hawks 103-100. I have a couple of things to say about this game. First of which is the fact that I am not a fanboy kind of fan. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the Sixers are great and everything's fine when it isn't. This fan base has been taken over by these new age kumbaya, everything is grand people. I don't know where they came from. They don't really define what I think is a Philadelphia fan. Everything's positive in their eyes, and no one can do any wrong. Keep in mind, this is the same team that in my entire lifetime, I'll be 32 years old in July, they have never won anything. They would call that ugats around here. Nothing. Okay, remember that. This is a team that doesn't deserve your respect. Why do I just assume that everything's going to be okay? Big Joel will get going. I don't know if you saw last night, but Joel Embiid had arguably the worst second half in the history of the NBA. And you know what happened? He fell tired. He was tired. Ben Simmons couldn't pick up the slack as usual. When are we going to stop making excuses for this team? And now instead of being up 3-1, headed back to your home arena to close out a series against a pesky opponent who's been right there in certain games, it's 2-2. And Atlanta did exactly what they needed to do. You scored 38 points in 2 quarters last night. It's not just going to... Real quick, let me just finish. They're not just going to flip a switch and just say, you know what? It was Atlanta. We'll win the next 2 games. I'm just tired of the constant, well, everything is fine. No, it isn't. And why do you expect them to just switch and turn things on? They never do that.
I would say losing yesterday was egregious. Even the idea that. Oh, so let me ask you this: do you go to Embiid on the last play?
No, they needed a 3. So, if I'm Shake Milton the way he was playing, I'd shoot the ball.
Because that Embiid drive was tough. I just don't understand what happened in the way he was playing. I'd shoot the ball. I'm sorry about that. I just
wanted to turned hear my rant so bad that you just played it on the side.
I accidentally clicked the tweet that I just sent out. But no. So the thing about the Sixers is in a game in which Trae Young shot 8 for 21. I think it was 8 for 21 or 8 for 24 from the field. You have to win. You can't lose that game. I think he was 3 for 11 from 3. You have to win that game. The Atlanta's Ferrari ran out of gas. You know what I'm saying? You have to win that race. And so especially down the stretch, it was one of those moments that I'm not to say that I'm a Sixers. I don't care either way about the Sixers. I don't support them or dislike them. But I did fundamentally not care for the process because there's just some level of we're here to win, right? Like, what are we doing if we're not
and
here
they're
to
still
play,
not winning.
right?
That's the thing. Like that's the thing. Like, and that's what I like hate about this whole thing is that you wasted all this time and you try to sell this bill of goods to the fans that it was all worth it, and then you go out and get who you call the 2 franchise players of this team, which I think you have one. I don't think the other one's a franchise player, and that is that good.
Yeah.
But they try to sell that bill of goods and say, well, we're going to be fine. We're getting to the playoffs. We're going to win series. They don't do that, okay? Then, to make it even more laughable, they keep a guy around in Brett Brown that should have been fired 2 or 3 years before he was, and you waste basically 5 years. And then you have another reprieve, right? You can go out and at multiple points move on from Ben Simmons. At what point it was conceivable to believe you could send him and a package of players to San Antonio for Kawhi Leonard? It was conceivable to happen. You could have went out and got Kyle Lowry. You could have got James Harden. And this fan base, this ownership, this GM tried to say, you know what? I don't know about that. We don't want to give up Tyrese Maxey or Matisse Thybulle. Look, nice young players, but give me a break. James Harden's one of the most prolific scorers in the history of the league and would do wonders for a team like this. It's really irritating. They have as one of the commenters saying, a weak-ass mentality. And all I heard last night, there were 2 things I heard, and one of the things you brought up. You had Trae Young, who did not play well in last night's game, and they still won. All I heard last night from Sixers fans was, Joel, he was terrible, and they still almost won. Hey, earth to you. They didn't. I don't care if you lose by 1 or 100. You lost. Second of all,
bigger thing
to use the excuse that you were tired is one of the most laughable excuses ever. They're NBA players. Tired. You're tired in a playoff series. Keep in mind, this is what you play, and you told us all year you were playing for, the playoffs. And you're tired? Right. That's the excuse? Come on.
So I say, like, with Philly, what I thought was the biggest indictment of the process is Embiid going for what would be the game winner, and then Simmons missing the tip in. I was like, damn. Like somewhere, Sam Hinkie is sitting there. But for me with the Sixers, man, and we'll get to it in a little bit with the Clippers, I imagine. But I'm a little concerned because these like you look at the Lakers and Anthony Davis goes down, and it's like, oh my God, how is this team even considered for a title? You look at the Sixers. Embiid goes 0 for 11, and that team looks so incredibly regular. They don't have a curveball. They don't have a slider. They don't have all they got is the fastball, and that's Joel Embiid. And if he can go for 40 and his knee was feeling great, and if he was on a roll, I like the Sixers. I had him to win the East, but I'm concerned now.
If the Sixers lose this series, Martin, there is a possibility that I will go down in this city as public enemy number 1 in that fan base. Because for years, I have talked and talked and talked. And you know what? I've been right every time. And a lot of people will say, you're not a real fan. No, I'm a realist at the end of the day. I'm not going to sugarcoat stuff because as a fan, I need to do that. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to, I'm just not going to do it. And you know what? If I bought tickets for the game tomorrow, you know where I'd buy them? Through the Hawks website, not the Sixers. I'd buy them through the Hawks website. So the money goes to that group instead. You know why? Because they have built a team very, very succinctly, and they're competing. And I think this fan base, this group, they've tried to sell a bill of goods for a long time, and I'm sick of it. And you're right. And it's one of the reasons I bet against this team in this series. Now, ultimately, I might be wrong, but I'm still not completely wrong because until they win a title, which I don't think they're going to do, I will continue to be vindicated. This process has not worked. And as you said, they are one injury or one bad game away from being a totally different team. And that's concerning because when you tell me all your fans, they were tired last night. This is what Joel Embiid does. He's always out of shape. Always. I mean, say what you want about Nikola Jokic, right? He won the MVP. What did they win? Nothing. Who cares about the MVP? I don't care if Joel Embiid was almost the MVP. The fact of the matter is, if they don't win anything, this is yet another failure of a season. And now you make tomorrow night. I just have to go, just to be there for that. Now I'm not going to go in and wear an Atlanta Hawks shirt, but I'm going to watch and I'm going to see how it goes. Because if Atlanta wins tomorrow night, whoa.
I'd say your point about the Hawks is interesting because I was thinking about this last night. Okay, so you have so far remaining, you got like the you really got kind of the two styles of NBA team building still remaining, right? You have like the Clippers and the Nets and the Sixers, right? Who all kind of game the system to get these massive free agents or these special draft picks. You know what I'm saying? They all kind of game the system. Whereas you have Utah and Phoenix and Milwaukee and the other Eastern team is escaping me right now. Atlanta, thank you, Atlanta, the one that brought this whole up. But where they kind of built their teams through the draft and through trades and through the more conventional ways of NBA team building and one or two big free agent signings as opposed to the multiple. It's going to be interesting to see which one of these kind of theories bears out because you look at Brooklyn, you got Harden's hamstring and Kyrie's ankle and Embiid's knee and, you know, all in Kyrie. I mean, not Kyrie, but Kawhi and Paul George last year with the load management. Whereas you're not really seeing these types of scenarios in these other more traditionally built teams.
You are seeing and I said this a lot in these playoffs. You're seeing a change in the guard in the NBA, right? You're seeing teams.
The future is now
that have built, succinctly. Maybe they have one draft pick and they just go out and get like the Miami Heat did that. I know they had a Jimmy Butler, but most of that team was through the draft and through the free agent process. But we're seeing it built through the draft. Coy draft picks and the right situations and teams like Atlanta and Phoenix and Utah. I mean, they've all kind of figured out the blueprint. So we'll see. But tomorrow night could be very interesting in this town. And look, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. The other game last night we had was really a blowout from the start. It was 30-13 Clippers, end of the first. And the Clippers just kind of cruised. This was never really much of a game. The only thing that I had to worry about here, I did take the under. I lost the first game that I bet, but I did take the under here. And look, for wide parts of this game, I thought it had no shot. I thought it was going to be a bad day for me because I didn't have a great day at Euros. But I was happy to see this one salvage and get a W here. We had a 69-point second quarter. And this game still went under the number. Sharp money was on the under. I thought we'd see this Jazz team, man, is just, they have to get Mike Conley back. If they do not get Mike Conley back, they may lose this series. I know Donovan Mitchell gets all the fanfare, but Mike Conley is the engine that makes them go. He puts everything in motion. Look, without gas in your car, you can have a Ferrari, but if you don't have the gas, it ain't going to go nowhere. They need someone to conduct that and put it in motion.
I think Mitchell is the engine that makes them go still, but I think what Conley brings to them that he does not in the playoffs necessarily. Like if you look at Donovan Mitchell's scoring numbers, they're off the charts. Like before last night, the only person who was scoring more per 36 minutes in the playoffs was a guy named Michael Jordan. I don't know what they were after last night's stats updated, but in any event, when you're in the conversation with guys like Michael Jordan and Wilt Chamberlain, you're doing something right, But I think what Mike Conley brings to the Jazz is that pick and roll. Okay, so you know what it does? You know what it is? What Mike Conley brings to the Jazz is less Jordan Clarkson.
Right, and that's the issue they have, Martin. Like I've kind of been highlighting this. They have too many net negatives on offense that when you take one of the positives out in Conley, you are forced to go to others that either can't score or maybe can score, but they struggle defensively, i.e. Ingles, right? You need Conley because this is not a deep team. And this is also a problem. I talked on Twitter Spaces. Someone astutely reached out on Twitter Spaces and said they have to go to someone other than Derek Favors off the bench. And I said, they don't have anyone else.
Yeah,
Derek Favors, Gobert, Royce O'Neal, all these guys are, for the most part, not consistent offensively or net negatives offensively. So when you lose Conley, I agree. The end-all, be-all is Mitchell. Okay, he's your guy that's going to give you 40. But that is not enough. You need someone else that's going to distribute. As you astutely pointed out, creating the pick and roll, create and set tables for everybody else, take the stress off everybody else. This team doesn't have the ability to miss out on a player like him.
No, what the Jazz need to do if they want to come back in this series, they have to see Rudy Gobert. The challenging thing about Rudy Gobert is you don't want to necessarily pass him the ball on the block and say, go get one, big fella. But he needs to score 15 to 20 points. So you have to involve him in that pick and roll, that some of those ways to get that big man activated as he's coming down the paint. And with Donovan Mitchell playing the way he's playing, you're not necessarily telling him to look for his teammates more often, right? Mm-hmm. But the thing is, like, all right, Joel Embiid, how would you feel if Joel Embiid went 0 for 11 yesterday or 0 for 12 in the second half yesterday? How would you feel if he had gone 0 for 4 in the second half?
I would probably be just as irritated because he only took 4 shots.
Exactly. Because you want somebody like Joel Embiid, dude, if you only take 4 shots, it's like, dude, you kind of quit, okay? Like, you took 12 shots, you missed them all. All right, but at least you gave us some effort out there. Right. You were out there trying. Jordan Clarkson takes 12 shots. That's not good, right? Like, Jordan Clarkson can never go 0 for 12. Like, if he's 0 for 4, it's time to come out of the game. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Whereas Joel Embiid, we're going to just rest you for a second. Now, Clarkson's 4 for 4. We're going to let you shoot, maybe he'll go 7 for 12, 6 for 12, right? But seeing Jordan Clarkson last night just made me realize it's like, dude, they don't have, again, the playoffs is all. What are you doing? What is your curveball? I know I kept saying it. And Ty Lue, after the first 2 games of each of these series, has had a curveball, and they have looked like completely different teams. And it's not because the star players are playing incredibly differently. You know what I'm saying?
Finding his way, Tyronn Lue. And I'll tell you what. There's 2 connections I want to make to Tyronn Lue right now. One of which is this is an interesting story, and I always found this interesting about Tyronn Lue, right? So you would agree, Tyronn Lue, from an NBA standpoint, didn't really – I mean, he had that one game where he just got destroyed by Iverson, but he was pretty much a journeyman in the NBA. He didn't really have much of a career. He was kind of a do-it-all defender, but he didn't really ever do much.
So a guy like Ty Lue, I quantify them as just like as an NBA player. Like Ty Lue for like 10 years on his tax returns, he filed as NBA player.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's exactly right. But there's an interesting connection to this. So when I had before my weight loss and everything, before the pandemic, I was dating a girl for like a year, off and on. And she traveled occasionally, friends of hers and stuff. And one time, a friend of hers and her went to LA for a few days. And she hits me up the one night. She goes, hey, I don't really know this guy. She's like, but so my girl met this dude at a day club. And she's like, he wants to take us out to dinner tonight. He's super cool. Do you know him? He according to her, she's like, he played in the NBA or something. And I'm like, she's like, he's kind of like a coach, I think. And I'm thinking like, oh no, is this Tyronn Lue? This can't be Tyronn Lue. She goes, I think his name's like Ty something. And I'm like, you got to tell me what happens at this meal. So she calls me like after the meal. She goes, oh my God. She goes, you're not going to believe it. She goes, it was terrible. She goes, in the hour we were at the restaurant, she said, I don't think we spoke 5 words to this guy. She said all he talked about was himself and how great he was and telling us how great of a player in the NBA he was and this and that. And I kind of always had that thought about Tyronn Lue that he's just like this guy that maybe thinks he's better than he was in the NBA. But now I'm starting to see that like he's a pretty good coach. And what I see with the Jazz in the series is kind of connectable to Tyronn Lue again. The Jazz really remind me of the Sixers in 2000. They had one star and like just a bunch of other guys.
Mm-hmm.
And without Conley, they are exactly that team. They just have a bunch of other guys, and Allen was good enough to kind of find his way through. But Mitchell still, it sucks because his 40 sometimes isn't going to be enough. But you're right with Tyronn Lue. He really was just an NBA guy for a while.
I mean, but I say just the idea to go to Batum and the idea to go to Batum, the idea to bench Rondo, to bench DeMarcus Cousins, and he's playing these rosters, and it's interesting because as I was sitting there watching Philly, and I know you were complaining the last time we were talking about last time we were doing the show, you were complaining about Doc and how like we don't need to see Cork Maz anymore on the court and so on and so forth. Like, and Doc is known to run his rotations out there, and Ty Lue is he's pulling all types of strings, and I'm sitting here looking at the Clippers, and I'm wondering. People made jokes all year. No, it's Doc's fault. It's Doc's fault. The reason why the Clippers lost, right? It's Doc's fault. They fired Doc. Everything's gonna be fixed. Well, I'm not saying it's Doc's fault, but Ty Lue seems to be doing a pretty damn good job of managing his team through these playoffs so far, because they come out and took 2 haymakers in back-to-back series, and all they did was come back to life in both of them.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think he's done a great job, and I never thought I'd say that, but he's definitely come into his own for sure over these playoffs. Spread of Stairs saying Rudy Gobert would be Dikembe. Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, you have like, Royce O'Neal would be like Tyrone Hill. Bogdan Bogdanovic is kind of like Aaron McKee-ish type. Donovan would be AI, and then Ingles is like your. I don't know, Eric Snow. Like they're a lot like that team. Like weird. All right, let's move on and get into tonight's action. We've got one game on the cards, and this game, I got to tell you, man, this series has been my absolute bugaboo. I don't know how to pick it. It has just been a complete mess for me. The Bucks at Brooklyn. Bucks laying 4. Total is 219.5. If you believe that the Brooklyn Nets and Kevin Durant can win it all by themselves, plus 146 comes back if you play that. So obviously we know what's going to happen here. Kevin Durant is going to have to carry.
Real quick, Jeff, I'm sorry. Does that sound funny for Brooklyn to be plus 4 and the money line only be plus 146?
I think it's a little low, but it's pretty standard. I mean, usually a 3-point favorite is going to be, dogs, you're going to get 140-ish back. So I think it's about on. I mean, it sounds weird to think that the Nets are a dog at home. I think that's
maybe that's what's rising my antenna.
I think that's what's kind of interesting. But I have a couple angles here, and actually they're pretty succinct. Here's a few of them. Brooklyn is a home dog. 1, 2. The entire betting public is well aware that Kyrie and James Harden are not in this game. They've seen how great Milwaukee's been. You know what that's called? Recency bias. Brooklyn will win this game tonight.
I'm so with you.
Milwaukee is not good on the road. In fact, they are a losing proposition against the spread on the road this season, covering only 41% of the time. And this is a very good Nets team at home. And I know, we have to remember, Kyrie was in most of those games with Kevin Durant. But I think you could make a strong case, night to night, that the best player in the world is Kevin Durant. Okay? He's one of the great scorers and one of the great players in the history of this league. And I have concerns backing a team that's going to have to get contributions from Joe Harris and Blake Griffin and Jeff Green and all these different guys, because it is a kind of ragtag group of guys that I don't really want deciding the game. But I know how the NBA works. And for me, it could be a loss. I've felt like in this series, whatever I played, it's the opposite happens. But I will say, Martin, the last thing, I have done very well in these playoffs overall. And for me, I'll hope that we get a miracle and maybe James Harden gives it a go and gives me 20 or something tonight. But I'm taking Brooklyn. I'll gladly take 4 points as a dog. I think Kevin Durant puts the team on his back, as they say, and they get it done.
I'm with you, dude. I'm with you 100%. I think the entire world is going to be betting on the Bucks, and I think that Brooklyn is a smart play, and not even too crazy of a play. And like the gambling numbers add up. I was wondering into like how you like would gauge like the regular season stats in the playoffs, but just did you know that since April the Nets at home 14-2 straight up.
It's very good. I mean,
12-3 against the spread.
Like I said, those games, and this is where I think when you're talking about season stats, we have to be clear here. That was with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, but this was also a team though that, as you alluded to, was 14-2 in April. That was without James Harden, and if you know anything about the James Hardenless Nets, they weren't great. So the fact that they were able to do things like that does tell me a lot, and I think goes a long way in this game.
And I think that I think that people are a little unfair on KD in the last game when the idea that I don't think that people account for the human cost that happens when you see one of your teammates get hurt like that. Right? Like you see Kyrie go down, you know he's walking off, but it's like, damn, Kyrie's hurt, and you kind of like I feel like there has to be some level of deflation that happens in that moment of like, damn, especially because it's not game 7, it's not the end of the series if we lose this game. I think that there's a little bit of like maybe a loss of mental focus that can occur when you see something horrible like that. I mean, you're reminded of your basketball mortality in a moment like that, especially a guy like Kevin Durant who's seen his basketball mortality flash before his eyes several times. So, but I do like the Nets to win here. I think that Steve Nash is going to draw up all types of stuff to get Kevin Durant open and in all types of different actions. And I think the other thing is like the national discourse surrounding PJ Tucker through the first 4 or 5 games of the series. It really reminds me of when the Warriors were playing the Clippers and Patrick Beverley was guarding Kevin Durant. And it was all and Kevin Durant said, he looked at the camera. He's like, yo, I'm MFing Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
It's like,
listen, it's all about recency bias, man. You get Kevin Durant mad. He's past the whole injury thing. Like, this is the game, man. This is a legacy kind of game, man. This is the game that if you win this series, they're going to look back and say, yo, Kevin Durant, what was it, game 5? Was a killer in that game. He shut down the Bucks. He won that game. It was Kevin Durant and Bruce Brown. And like, that's where your legacy's built, man. And you know what? I think the odds are telling me long term, you're going to get Harden back. Whether you get Kyrie back or not, you get Harden and Kevin Durant and everybody else, they're still the favorites to win. And the odds are telling you that. They're still the favorite to win the NBA title. Also, Martin, keep in mind, through 4 games, the Milwaukee Bucks, 36 for 135 from 3. That's 26%. Not good. They've struggled. They don't make free throws. They lead points on the free throw line. We agree here, man. Brooklyn plus the 4.
Am I sneaky? I don't know what they are right now, but look out for Mike James props. I have a feeling that Mike James, because here's the thing. Mike James, he's going to shoot, okay? He's going to let that thing fly. So, and especially, like, if you notice
the other night.
If you notice, to me, because it's always interesting to me to see how coaches are going to adjust when they have something thrown in their plan that they weren't, like, obviously Steve Nash wasn't banking that Kyrie's going to twist his ankle. So he kind of looks down at the bench and says, now what? It seems to me that they tried to have Mike James play that little Kyrie role in the second half. Like the role that Kyrie was playing in their offense. Mike James was like a 32-point-a-game scorer in Russia. I'm not saying, obviously, Russia, the talent level is not as great. You see Mike James over 12.5 points. Hey, I think Mike James is going to get a lot of run tonight. I think he's going to get a lot of shot attempts. I might be crazy.
I remember in the regular season, there was a prop on Isaiah Stewart, rookie for the Pistons.
Yep.
His rebound prop in one game was 12.5, and I felt like That's wild. Like, his pre-run prop should be like 7.5. I remember Spread Astaire and I played it, and I think he had 2 rebounds that game. The thought of putting a prop out on Mike James at 12.5 is crazy. But when you think about it, tonight, he's going to get 20-ish, 25 minutes. He's going to get a lot of run. And when you talk about Mike James, all he really does is shoot. You look at in 4 games this series, he played 24 or more minutes twice. And in those 2 games, he had 23 shot attempts. So Mike James is going to run, man.
Mike James is going to – this is who the shots are going to come today from Mike James, Joe Harris, and obviously Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
But that's where the offense is coming from.
Mike James is going to have his Jeremy Lin moment, I think, where he's just like knocking shots down at home, and people are like, "Oh my God, this is my Rain Man moment." Mike James. By the way, trivia question for you: how old are you, Martin? You're how old?
30. I'll be 32 in August.
You're the same age as me, so this is a great question for you. You talk about Mike James. There was a rapper in the 2000s with the first name of Mike. Do you know what his last name was and what his phone number was that he would always give out?
Who?
See, this is why I love you, man, because you know shit like this. Mike Jones. 281-330-8004. Hit Mike Jones up on the low because Mike Jones about to blow. Yo, Mike
no one
Jones,
could ever
man.
have that phone number. No one could never have that phone number. After that, it was over.
I haven't called it in many years, but I wonder what it is still.
I mean, back in the house phone era, it was definitely like like he had the number. Like
I remember you would call it and he'd be like, "Yo, Mike Jones," and it wasn't really him. It was like a voice recording, but it was funny. I will say this till the day I die: "Still Tippin'" is one of the best beats in the history of rap. Nobody ever gives it credit. That beat, whenever you hear it, and I remember the kids back in the day when I was younger. Everybody had bass in their car. Subwoofers, all that kind of crap. That beat, when you drop that beat, look, we're not from the South up here, but that beat, man, Paul Wall put it down on that. Slim Thug, and that set the stage for like a Paul Wall solo career. Sitting Sideways, that track was fire. Still Tippin', that beat was crazy, man.
I'm about to say, I didn't know that Still Tippin's beat didn't get a lot of credit. But
we forget about all those beats, though, now.
I am from the South, though.
Oh, are you? Where are you from in the South? I didn't know that.
I'm originally from Louisiana.
I think you did tell me that, actually. I didn't. I totally forgot. But, yeah, that like, kind of crunk music and then, like, the Houston sound, I always had a strong feel for that. I always enjoyed it. I know a lot of people, it was kind of a fad kind of thing back in the 2000s, but, like, I loved like the Young Bloods and Little Flip and like all that kind of stuff. Obviously T.I. and I loved that era.
Did you know Chameleon? You know Chameleon? Yeah, Chameleonaire is now like a big tech investor.
I've heard of that. He's like very rich, from what I understand. Paul Wall's actually done very well for himself too. I follow him on Instagram. He's got like a grills place. He sells like jewelry and stuff.
Oh, nice.
It's still like I think he still makes a ton of money off it. So, yeah, those were the days, man. That was when rap was special. So, Mike James, be like Mike Jones. What is Mike Jones doing nowadays, you think?
I don't know. Probably introducing himself to people and people saying, "Excuse me, who?"
He's probably on Cameo. He would make a lot on Cameo.
Oh,
he would make a lot on Cameo. By the way, I got my listen to this last night. This is so funny to me, Martin. So I'm on. I never go on Facebook, right? So I was on Facebook a couple times yesterday, and I saw some weird stuff. Like I saw a guy like trying to tell us that Janice Soprano is actually attractive, and he's trying to tell people that he finds Janice Soprano attractive. But I also saw this. So Cameo does these like promotional things. And I joined Cameo partly as like a troll job, but also to donate to charity because I like to donate to charity, and I thought it was a good way to do it. And I've actually did okay with Cameo. Like people want cameos from me, but I saw the thing pop up that says celebrities to book Jeff Nadu. Book Jeff Nadu now on Cameo. And you see my face, and I felt like, wow, I'm the celebrity that they're pushing. I mean, it's probably just by chance that it's on my feed, but like, I don't know. I just found that funny.
Hey man, you never know. Maybe they want the big man on campus.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I'm trying to find info on where Mike Jones is. After Mike Jones, after a decade, where is Mike Jones in 2015? Yeah, I'll have to look into that and find that out. Okay, let's wrap it up. Best bets in basketball. Martin, it's Brooklyn, right? That's it. +4.
I'm going Brooklyn +4, but I'm
And the
telling
Mike
you,
James prop. Are you playing that?
I'm not betting it, but it's one of those that at the end of the night, I'm gonna be like, I knew it. So like, don't be surprised you see me tweeting like, who Mike James at you tonight.
I'll actually look forward to that. A couple of interesting tidbits on Mike Jones. According to the Social Security Administration, Michael is the 4th most common American name in the last 100 years, and Jones is the 5th most common name. So you would have to agree that I don't think his name's actually Mike Jones, but that was actually a pretty catchy thing. I guess Lamar Jackson referenced Mike Jones very recently, and Mike was, according to the report, was appreciative that he said his name. I have to look up to see what's going on with Mike Jones. But, okay, let's move on. We have Euro Cup today. A lot of people are probably wondering, what do I think about France and Germany? And I'm going to tell you right now, I wouldn't bet the side here with a 10-foot pole. I think the draw has some value here, to be real frank. I think people are kind of forgetting a bit about Germany. Are they what they once were? No, but they still have a lot of great players, whether it's Mueller or Gnabry or Havertz. This is still a very good team going forward. And I think defensively, I mean, Neuer's still a great goalkeeper. I think you'll see a different kind of formation from them. France is the best team in the tournament. It's that simple. But I think they're throwing out France +170 to a lot of square bettors. And I think what will happen here is this is probably 1-1. And I think the talent on both sides will cancel each other out. Will I play it? Probably not. Maybe small, play the tie. But when you see a draw at +210, that's telling you something. That's telling you that this is probably going to be a draw. And I know you don't want to root for draws, but I think maybe this is 1-1. I think both teams find a way to get a goal, and they both take a point, and nobody feels bad about it. But I could be wrong. Martin, do you bet soccer? Do you know anything about soccer?
The last soccer I watched was the World Cup, but I fell in love with Mbappe. But you know what though? This summer I realized, like, you know, I put it like this: last summer, I'm not doing that again. So this summer I'm going to get into more baseball, and I'm trying to get
into other things. That's soccer. Fair. That's fair. I mean,
try to learn.
Go ahead.
I was just trying to learn some of those games because I don't want to go through Jeff. I don't want to go through a period in my life again with no sports. Like before, I used to kind of like I used to enjoy like August, right, where it's like there's no real games on. Now, like no, I don't want to break. Mainline it, everything, competition, whistles, fouls, refs, fights, arguments, points, runs, all of it. I want it all.
Yeah, I mean, this is a game to watch. You know, if you're trying to watch soccer, this will be a good one. I mean, there are a lot of great players in this match. So this is the glitzy, glammy game of the first round of games. So check that out. I'm going to probably be looking at a draw here. I think the draw makes a lot of sense. And we're getting a reduced price, which sucks. But I'll tell you what. Maybe you take a shot with a correct score prop here, 1-1. You know, that could get you some real. I mean, 1-1 is +500. Not bad. I don't think it's going to be 2-2. So 1-1 sounds kind of interesting here at +500. How about that? Let's parlay that with Mike James to score over 12.5. That's probably a nice price. All right. Before we go, let's tell us where we can find Martin Weiss. Martin, tell us what you have going on. I, for whatever reason, nowadays just like to assert the guest into the show, and at the end, I allow you to promote what you want to promote. I would highly urge, go check Martin Weiss out, especially if you're someone that I think is looking to. I think Martin's a really great kind of creator as far as what he's done. It's not easy to do what he's done. I mean that. But Martin knows the cardinal rule. It doesn't matter whether people like you or don't like you. though I know a lot of people like him, it's about who you know. And that's what these people don't understand. It's all about who you know. Martin, I want to connect this to you in some way. Tomorrow we're releasing an episode on my podcast about Al Capone, okay?
Okay.
You can make the case Al Capone is the most famous and recognizable gangster in the history of this country. Is that fair to say? Probably.
I think so.
I think anyone can tell you if you show a picture of him, you think of Al Capone. But you can make the case as well, and we talk about this in the episode, he's probably the most overrated mafia figure. He wasn't even a mafia figure. He was just a gangster. But Al Capone was able to create a notorious reputation and life for himself through knowing the right people. And wildly enough, Martin Weiss, I think, is perfected how to know the right people and kill it when you have the opportunity. Because we all get the opportunity. Once you get the opportunity, you got to kill it, and you've made your way through doing that. And I think you're a picture of success.
I appreciate that. I will say Al Capone, he was pretty successful in his own right. You know, failure is just a man's inability to reach his goals. That's failure. So
that's very correct. And Al Capone at one point, his organization, in 1928, think about this, was bringing in $100 million a year. In 1928, that's equivalent to like $2 billion a year.
Oh, Jeff, you'll get a kick out of this. You know where I've been?
Where's that?
I've been to Hotel Nacional in Havana, Cuba.
Wow, really?
And I've seen, yeah. I don't know what you just said that sparked that in, but I've been there before. I've seen all the pictures, and I didn't stay the night there, but we spent like 4 or 5 hours there.
Yeah, that's where the Havana conference is, and we actually talked about this a little bit last week. So back in the '60s, in the '50s as well, the mafia was trying to encroach into Cuba, Meyer Lansky and several others, to basically create Las Vegas, but in Cuba, right? Because Cuba was this place where it was kind of free, it was beachy, it was a great place to go. Obviously, though, Fidel Castro comes in and kind of ends all that stuff and creates this communist revolution, and that leads to the Bay of Pigs and all this stuff, and the CIA's plot to kill Castro through the mafia. But Hotel Nacional, if you've ever watched Boardwalk Empire, have you ever seen Boardwalk Empire, Martin?
No, I haven't. I didn't.
Does not get the respect of The Sopranos or The Wire, but I think it is a top 3 or 4 TV show ever. Highly, very good. It's very realistic. And in seasons 4 and 5, they talk a lot about Cuba and the inroads into Cuba through the mafia. And I would highly recommend that and kind of the early thoughts. But Hotel Nacional, it's pretty incredible. When were you there?
I was there in 2018.
Okay.
I went with a group. I went with a group of friends, and we went to Havana, and we stayed in Havana for maybe 4 days. And then we went to Varadero Beach, which is about 3.5 hours away. But I mean, if you ever have the opportunity to go, especially you and your mafia interests and all that, because it is truly, the Americanisms in Cuba are truly frozen in 1956.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got it.
It's true, it's legitimately now, I'm not saying like Cuba is frozen in 1956, but the things that you see from America, and I'll tell you this, you'll never understand more about what being an American means than going to a place like Cuba.
Mm-hmm. I've actually heard that. I got to get down there. I think, for someone that kind of likes the mob history like I do, I think it's a must. And when I talked to you about at Nacional, that Havana conference, I mean, that was pretty incredible. I mean, that's where basically, and in 1929 they did this in Atlantic City, but this was an even bigger thing where literally all the high-level mob bosses in America converged on one place and had a meeting, basically. It was like a syndicate meeting. Trafficante was there. Luciano was there. Meyer Lansky was there. Frank Costello was there. All these guys that literally ran the mafia in America You know, and decisions were made there. I mean, it was pretty incredible. There's a lot of history, but Cuba, I've heard,
essentially.
is awesome.
Essentially, it's like the opening scene of Analyze This without the police, right? Like, but in Cuba on the beach as they're sipping mojitos.
Well, if you've ever watched Godfather 2, I mean, this was kind of dramatized in that movie. I mean, it was a scene, man. I mean, and like this, it's just crazy how much control the mafia has had. Like, not now, obviously, but like in the landscape of like America and how it was created, like from the 20s until the 70s, the mafia literally ran this country for the most part. I mean, they ran entire cities. Like at one point in Al Capone's life, Martin, 50% of the police department of Chicago was bribed by him. 50%. I mean, they literally controlled elections, and it only took to the federal government to say, we got to step in on this guy, and he still only got 11 years. If Al Capone didn't contract syphilis, he would have lived to be 70, 80 years old. He literally goaded the government and beat them for the most part.
The thing that's wild about like career criminals in that way, it's like sometimes after a while you get a little too big to fail, like Pablo Escobar, right? Yeah. Like not to say that Capone and Escobar were similar, but the idea that you'll build your own prison, right? You know, it's like
that's wild. Listen, you spit in the federal government's face too many times. You know what they're going to do? They're going to take the whole world onto you, and you won't. Look at Chapo Guzman, prime example. Chapo Guzman, for years owned Mexico. He starts encroaching inside of the United States. He becomes public enemy number one, and the U.S. says, you know what? There is no resource we will not use to get this guy, and they did. They always win in the end. They have more money than you. Who's on your show?
Do you watch the shows? Raymond Santana.
Tell me about him.
Do you know Raymond Santana? He was one of the Central Park Five, or the Exonerated Five.
Wow, incredible film, actually. I watched it on Netflix. Very well done, fascinating story. I'm a big supporter of the Innocence Project, by the way. That's kind of where I'm donating my Cameo stuff. And I think one of the most important charities in this country is that project. The fact that there are people in America so frequently being held for decades in prison without committing a crime is really atrocity, and we don't talk about it enough. That's a great shirt. That's a great film. That's a very disturbing, sad story. If you haven't seen that, I would go watch that film. It's very well done. Very well done.
Yeah,
that shirt,
When They See Us.
Yes, When They See Us. That's what it's called. Good call. The kid from Moonlight's in that movie, I believe. At least I think. I think he might even play Raymond Santana, actually. Moonlight is a great film as well. We don't talk enough about. I've actually said it's a top 10 film ever. Nobody ever says that.
Moonlight, a top 10 film ever.
Yeah,
that's a take.
Have you seen it?
I have. I don't know. It's not in my top 10.
I think it might be the best trailer ever made, actually.
Very good movie though, but it's not in my. I don't have my top 10 is kind of nebulous, but Moonlight would not be in it.
I loved it. All right, let's wrap it up. Ludacris says, "Where are the picks?" Oh, I don't know. We talked about him for like an hour. Listen, Lou, you're 50 minutes into the show, brother. You gotta rewind back, which you can do. This is a good one. Before we get to, I want to talk about this. This is why I don't give out free picks. This right here, exactly why. This pulling stuff out of the air. I was 4-0 going into yesterday in the Euros, Martin, and this is the kind of stuff we get.
You know,
I mean, this guy was a fan of mine back in the day, though. Remember that. Now he hates me.
But you know what, though?
Thanks for watching, Jared.
At the end of the day, he's still a fan.
Exactly. He's still watching, which is great. That's what I love about this stuff.
He's in your he's in your live stream. That's what I'm telling people all the time.
It's like, so weird. It's like
yes, and plus too. So I grew up in Louisiana. I grew up in in conservative hotbed. Whatever. Yeah. So I learned early, guys like Rush Limbaugh. Half people listen to him because they like him, and the other half listen to him because they hate everything he's saying.
Howard Stern said that many years ago.
He get paid for all. He get paid for both halves.
I know.
So
Cardi B.
Hey,
Cardi B said it best, Martin. I want to say the VMAs like 2-3 years ago. She won like best artist, I think, and she went on the stage and just said, these people buy my CDs so they can listen and talk crap about it. But here's one thing that they don't realize: all that benefits me, and that's what people don't understand. Like, I'm in this business, okay, and I've been in it for 10 plus years, and I've continued to get stronger and stronger. And every one of these people, no matter if you talk good or bad about me, they all watch me. It just doesn't make sense to me. You should boycott and actually boycott. That's how boycotts actually work. You actually don't support the stuff. That's a true boycott. So, Jared, I want to thank you the most for watching this show, because whether you enjoy it or don't, a listen still counts. It's like when you win in betting. Whether you win by 1 point or 40 points, you take that ticket to the cashier, and they say, "Sir, do you want that in hundreds or 20s?"
Whether it was lucky, whether or not the guy over there is complaining about his bad beat, you know what I don't got? A bad beat. I got a cash-in ticket right here.
It don't matter, man. It's all the same. Thanks for watching. Follow Martin Weiss on Twitter at Martin Weiss, WEISS. What else you got going on, Martin Weiss?
Lemon Pepper Parlay podcast comes out on Thursdays. That's honestly, I got some things under the wraps right now. Hopefully next week I'll be able to disclose a little bit more, but I think things are going to be turning a corner for me soon. I'm looking forward to the little gap between the NBA and the NFL season, because I'm going to have a lot of things coming down the pipe for football.
Yeah, I think it's going to be welcome. I think it's going to be a big fall, big winter. So I think it's, August is going to be well deserved this year, because it's just a 1 month thing. Playoffs end of July. You got a little bit of time, a 3-week period to kind of get flowing for. I'll tell you what, one of the best weeks of the year is the last week in August, right before Labor Day. You got college football starting, but you don't have the NFL. You can just kind of watch games, enjoy yourself. I'm looking forward to it. We're going to have a special year this year, and I'm excited. Martin Weiss, go check him out. He's doing his thing. He's got some big announcements coming maybe, which is well-deserved. I'm the big man on campus. Thank you for watching the show. If you enjoy what you're seeing, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe. We are presented every day by PicksWise and powered by FanDuel. Make sure you check everything out that we do. Make sure you check out what sponsors we have. Check out what they're doing. Without them, we wouldn't have a show. And without you, we wouldn't have a show either. So thanks for watching. We'll see you all later. Thanks, Martin. Always appreciate you, buddy.